She does a beautiful prayer, doesn't she? Awesome. Reaching fulfillment. That's the topic. And as the reading, you heard in the reading, it begins with desire, because desire is a very powerful force. And I'm sure you can think of a time when you had a desire, something you really, really wanted. And perhaps it was a loving relationship, perhaps it was a new car, perhaps it was a hobby that you wanted to expand on. Like I see Rich out here, and he loves flying, and his desire was to have his own airplane, so he built one. And so each of us has a way of making our desires come true. Desire is energy, just like everything is energy. And desire sets in motion what we call the creative process. And the creative process is really very simple. Our desires are energy. They turn into this energy called intention. And that goes into subconscious mind. And as we build up that energy in our subconscious mind by thinking of it again and again and again, subconscious mind has what's called an attractive factor. Thomas Troward talked about that. And it draws like energy to us. So that's how it works. We figure out what our intention is. We put it in subconscious mind. It automatically goes there. It attracts like energy. It's a natural thing. It's how everything works. Intention, belief. Troward talked about it in the early 1900s. And sometimes when we have this attractive energy, it brings something to us and we think, well, I didn't expect it to look like that. And I remember Joanne Schuffelberger, she's in our choir. She used to be a practitioner years ago. And many practitioner meetings, she would say, you know, my car is about ready to fall apart. I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't afford a new car. I'm worried about this. I feel unsafe. And the next meeting, she says, you know, I was driving down the road and my car caught on fire. And I got out and I watched that thing burn up. And her insurance company got her a new car. And so we never know how it's going to turn out. We're never quite sure, but we're often quite surprised. And so the way we talk about it with people is we plant a seed in our subconscious mind, we water it with our thoughts, we keep thinking about it, and it creates a plant. So we experience the results of seed, soil, watering it, and creating a plant. Jesus said it this way in Mark 11:24. Whatsoever you desire, when you pray, believe that you've received it, and you shall receive. So desire evolves into fulfillment. When I have a deep desire to get something done, whether it's writing a book or a Sunday talk, I'm totally focused. Just ask Paul. I'm so focused because it's the way I do things. If I want to do it, I'm totally focused on it. And so where my attention goes, energy flows, and that stimulates that creative process. And even though I re-edited this whole talk twice already this morning, I think it has some gems in it, hopefully that will help you. In my 20s, a long time ago, I was working at a lumber yard in Ohio. And I finally decided to get a college degree, and I lived just a couple miles from Ohio State University. Buckeyes yesterday, 56 points. It was a great game. It was awesome. So anyway, I flipped through the college catalog, and I saw Forest Industries Management, which is how to build and manage and operate a sawmill, how to do forestry, how to do logging. And I thought, oh, this is perfect for me. So I didn't realize how difficult it would be. I should have stayed in sociology or something, but no, I had to go for the goal. And when I entered Ohio State, I decided I'm coming out of here with a 3.0. And I graduated with a 3.1. Didn't know this very well, so I could have aimed higher. I'm surprised I didn't, but I thought, I think, yeah, 3.0 will work. My next desire was to get a job after graduating, and I wanted to be in the wood products industry on the West Coast, preferably Oregon or Washington. And you know, a week after I graduated, I was flying to Portland, Oregon on a new job with the Wood Products Corporation. So it was interesting when I look back at all the stair steps in my life of desire and fulfillment. I remembered in my teens, I was reading books like The Power of Positive Thinking. Do you remember that book? Think and Grow Rich, Success Through a Positive Mental Attitude. I underlined, highlighted in those books, and I guess somehow it stuck in many ways. So I continue to have desires just like you do. And one of them is writing a Sunday talk every other week. But the topic today is from Roger Teal's book, This Life is Joy. And he writes, the primary role of human desire is to help us evolve. To evolve. Because desire pulls out a higher vision for our life, a higher vision. And it's a catalyst for inspiration that develops into intention, which is very powerful. But at the same time, he cautions us, sometimes we spend more time on what we don't have. I want that, I desire that, but I don't have it. And that's just like, for a practitioner, cancel, that prayer's not going anywhere. Because it closes the door to the energy of our intention because we're focused on what we don't have. In Matthew, it reads, when Jesus declared, for to the one who has, more will be given, and from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. I used to think that was pretty rude, but until I came to understand it, it's the creative process. To the one that has a have consciousness, I have it. It stimulates the creative process, and they will get more. To the one who's focused, I don't have it, it puts our whole life pretty well on shaky grounds. You don't know where that energy is going to show up. So it's important to have a have consciousness if you really desire something. In that way, I don't know, you've probably experienced many times, all of a sudden you're happy, things are flowing, things are moving just right. You're just going with the flow, with the have consciousness. And when you're focused on things not working, oh boy, there's, like for Paul, oh, there was one project in the morning, then, oh darn, things are not going well, then there was another project in the afternoon. So lots of things that can block you to your good. Roger Teal writes that desire and fulfillment are one, just like an acorn and an oak tree. There's a tree in that little acorn, and it will grow up, if it's watered, it will grow up into this beautiful tree. But when we separate desire from fulfillment, we put a wedge in the middle. And it's very difficult. It can be very difficult. We can then lapse into a feeling of wishing it's going to happen, hoping it's happening, maybe feeling that I'm very needy because it's not going to happen. That kind of energy is a real block. And Matthew reminds us again in 8:13, as thou hast believed, so shall it be done unto you. Now, I'm not a Bible student, don't get me wrong, but on quotes like this from a book as wildly popular as the Bible, I think it's really helpful because there's a higher truth here waiting to show up in us. In the book of Isaiah 65:24, before they call, I will answer. Job 13:22, call and I will answer. Luke 11:9, ask and it shall be given. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be opened to you. That's powerful stuff in the most famous book in the world by one of the most famous people that ever lived. So the keys to fulfilling our desire have been known for a long time, but there are a couple things that are very important. Feel the mental equivalent. How will you feel when this thing that you desire shows up? Like Joanna in her new car. She feels safer. She can go more places and feel safe. There's that new car smell that we all just love for a few weeks. There's such a joy when things like that happen. So feel the fulfillment is already there. That really adds good energy to your desire. And it stimulates more attractive energy. It's all connected. So it's important to have the feeling of fulfillment, not a feeling for will it show up. It's present moment acceptance. Mark 11:24, whatsoever you desire when you pray, believe that you have received, and you shall receive. In The Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes, on page 195, he writes, we should carefully consider whether we are willing to experience the results of our thoughts. Are we really willing? There should never be any hurt involved for yourself or anyone else, because as we sow, we reap. There is no limitation to this. The creative process has the whole universe to draw from in bringing to us what we believe we will have. You know, God's intelligent, and spirit is intelligent. And so when we have a form of desire and an intention, we never really know where it's going to come from. It may come from somebody out of state, something that you never anticipated. So it all has to do with our imagination and how we will feel when we have our desire. Well, I need to change the subject a little bit because this week brought a new focus into my life and a big, heavy intention on my part. It's called a bill called AB 5. It's a new law in California that goes into effect January 1, and it has to do whether a person that is in your organization is an independent contractor or an employee. Sylvia can relate to this. We worked on that many times. Well, this is something new. It creates a number of changes in the labor code, and I think we will be impacted in ways not totally yet understood. But the Assemblywoman she and her staff created this legislation were focused on the gig economies. You've probably heard a lot about Uber and Lyft, and the state wants them to be employees because they're driving all these miles, they don't have any benefits, they probably don't even make minimum wage, and the state is very intending on, if you need to be an employee and get benefits, we want you to be an employee. But by the time the bill went into law and was signed by the governor, the language was so broad, it covers everybody practically, almost every business that you can think of. Lobbyists have been following this, and so they were very quick to lobby the Assemblywoman and her staff in getting their businesses excluded from this bill. So exemptions go to doctors, nurses, hospitals, dentists, psychologists, and the list goes on. But there's a longer list of organizations that are not exempt, and we're one of them. Nonprofits, we're not on the list of exemption. Musicians are not on the list of exemption. And in researching this, I found that when it comes to nonprofits, there's over 2,000 of them in California, the work they do was so broad, they found it really hard to categorize. So they expect in January, when the legislature comes back into session, they are going to be flooded with requests for exemptions. When our home office in Golden, Colorado found out about this bill and how it will impact all the centers in California, they hired an employment attorney to make a video to describe this bill and its impact. And I've watched it 3 times and I still have questions. Legislation can be so darn challenging. She said it's all about your core business activities. So here at the center, we're all about teaching. We're all about having music, not at 9 o'clock, of course. But we're all about having guest speakers also. So our core business is around that. And she said, look at it this way. If you had a clothing store and you wanted to hire a seamstress, the seamstress has a direct connection to clothing. So if the seamstress was going to volunteer and not get paid at all and pass the 9-point checklist to be an independent contractor, that would be fine. But if you're going to pay her, she's your employee right now, even if it's only for an hour. Now, Sylvia and I know all the paperwork it takes to make a person an employee and all the record keeping, and it's when we're thinking of, wait a minute, we could have an additional 40 employees next year, it's just like overwhelming. So there's a 9-step checklist to determine if you're an independent contractor. But for the seamstress, she's not going to make that list. So she's an employee. Now, if the clothing store wants to hire a plumber, it has nothing to do with clothing. And if they pass the 9-point checklist, then they're a contractor and they have appropriate hours of billing that are fine. But for musicians, now it gets into, she said, here's an example. A singer goes into a recording studio and she pays a drummer some amount of money to come in and be on her song with her. Musician, drummer. Drummer can't pass the 9-point checklist. She is now his employer. And it blows my mind. And you're probably thinking, Mary, that's crazy. I wish it was. I wish it was. Because what comes with hiring them as an employee is you have to pay them minimum wage. They have to be covered by workers' comp. And you have to offer sick leave and all the things the state of California demands that you do for an employee. So as I was watching that video, my intent went higher and higher. In being a practitioner, when we do a prayer for something, we always say, treat and move your feet. Treat and move your feet. Do something. Take some action. So I prayed, and I thought, what is mine to do? So the first thing I decided to do was join the California Association of Nonprofits. Good organization. And they said, why are you joining us? And I filled the whole paragraph in, And she emailed me back right away, and she said, I'm going to connect you with our political director, and he can help you figure out where you are in all this. So he emailed me a long story about music, and so we're going to talk this week, and he's going to help me understand this. Because the penalties for any violation range from $5,000 to $25,000 if you incorrectly categorize someone as a contractor when they should be an employee. So I took another step. I called the attorney who did the video for home office. And I said, I have 5 questions. I have 7 today, but that day I had 5. And can you help me? And she said, well, yes, here's my fee. I said, no problem. I want the answers. So I intend to get those answers before the board has to pass our budget for the new year, because it's going to impact the budget. I wanted to share that because I've had some sleepless nights this week over that and the impact. And it's all about reaching fulfillment. If my goal is that nonprofit religious organizations are exempt from this, then I'm going to throw my whole weight as much as I can into it. And if you'd like to help me, you want to write some letters, want to call people, want to send out some emails, I'd love to have your help. I've already started doing this with our local interfaith group. I talked to Reverend Lynn, and she's going to send that video to all of the 17 faith groups in Redding. And that's another avenue. That's another avenue. So the more energy we put into it, I think we'll have good results. One of the challenges that Holmes thinks gets in the way is sometimes we think we can't do it. Oh no, I'm confident we can. I'm confident we'll find ways, avenues to help make this happen. Because the good has to be in our consciousness before it can be manifested. We can't manifest things as big as that if we can't even believe that it's possible. But then heck, you were a kid once. Didn't you want to learn how to ride a bike? And you did, and you finally did. And then you wanted to graduate from high school and maybe college and get a job. Well, for me, after that, then I wanted a soulmate, a person that I could dearly love and experience life together with. But I remember when I was in college, one of the hardest things for me, I didn't realize I had to take chemistry. I might have chosen another path. But my intention was to get a C. And that's exactly what I got. So just like the acorn that's going to grow up into a tree, your desires today have that potential to be in reality. Now we're wrapping up our Conscious Giving program. The pledge program is on the table in the back. And I really don't know where we are in that right now, but I'll tell you, when we can count on your funds for the new year, we can count on doing the many things that make this center so wonderful. In Luke 6:38, it says, "Give, and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. As you give, so shall you receive." It is the law of circulation. And in my mind, everyone who comes here contributes to the center's operations, all that we do. In Thiel's book, he ends this chapter with a really cute example of owning your fulfillment, owning it. Don't falter with your vision, he says. And here's a widely circulated letter. It's a letter written to a professor at Whitsun University by a person named Chris Jensen, and it's entitled, "Refusal of Rejection." Dear Professor Millington, thank you for your letter of March 16th. After careful consideration, I regret to inform you that I am unable to accept your refusal to hire me as an assistant professor in your department. This year, I've been particularly fortunate in receiving an unusually large number of rejection letters. With such varied and promising field of candidates, it's impossible for me to accept all these refusals. Despite Whitsun's outstanding qualifications and previous experience in rejecting applicants, I find that your rejection does not meet my needs at this time. Therefore, I will assume the position of assistant professor in your department in August, and I look forward to seeing you then. Best of luck in rejecting future candidates. Now, we don't know what happened to Chris Jensen, but I'm really confident the right job found him. So as we approach the new year, 2020, isn't it amazing, 2020? Know with me that your fulfillment begins with your desires. And I know that mine are pretty clear at the moment, and I encourage you to define yours as best you can. For those of us getting older, the intention may be good health. And I know for Paul, it's going to be replacing one of his parts, his hip. So what also comes with age is replacing parts. And, you know, we have fabulous people in Reading, fabulous surgeons that help do that. Feel what it will be like when your desire is fulfilled. Great, great energy. And you know what? That's what keeps humanity evolving, our desires and our fulfillments. So let's pray about that. The one infinite energy that created all things, all people, places, and things, created it based on a desire to understand itself, to experience itself. That's just our conjecture, but everything that has flowed from that initial creation began with an idea, began with a thought, began with a desire that turned into an intention. And so the creative process that has been operating throughout all time is operating right now. And I accept this knowledge and I accept this understanding for each one here today, that our desire, our intention results in fulfillment. I'm so grateful for this, knowing it's the key to life, knowing it's the key to how I think and express myself every day. What am I feeling today? Anger, frustration? Oh, I don't want that. Let that one go. I desire smooth green lights all the way through town. I desire no construction areas that slow me down. I desire happiness in my home. I desire kitties that just greet me when I walk in. All these desires create a happy life. And so I know for you today that you will accept that challenge. Bring to fulfillment in your life your most intended desires. And I say thank you, God, for creating this process So many don't know it, but here we are to share it and hope you understand that we can use it now every day for the greater good of humanity. And we accept that challenge. And so it is. Thank you.